Are you a mental health provider and you want to add consulting to your private practice and your mental health business, but you're not really sure what you can do in consulting? What types of consulting opportunities are there for you? This is the podcast episode for you. Hey, welcome back, everybody. My name is Dr. TK, clinical psychologist and therapist business mentor. In today's episode, this actually comes from a question that came up on social media. Then I put out a poll related to what information do you want to find out related to consulting, and would you like me to record a podcast episode so that I can break down the different types of consulting opportunities that I have pretty much had the opportunity to, do. And so first, what I thought that I would do is define, literally by definition, what is consulting, okay? So consulting is defined as someone who hires you to give expert advice or strategy in a specific area of your knowledge. You are not providing therapy. You're helping solve a specific problem using your expertise, usually in business, systems, or education. Now, the second level of this is, what does consulting look like as a mental health provider? It's when you use your mental health training to guide companies, schools, agencies, organizations, programs, systems, or trainings. You're not treating clients. You're helping organizations serve people better, okay? So I went a step further and I wanted to do some research on what are different types of consulting that mental health providers can do. So I want to share 10 of them with you. Number 1, program development consultant. Number 2, training facilitator for staff or agencies. Number 3, DEI or cultural competency consultant. Number 4, supervision systems consultant. Number 5, youth and school program designer. Number 6, after school curriculum developer. Number 7, clinical strategy advisor for nonprofit agencies. Number 8, branding marketing consultant specifically to therapy organizations. Number 9, trauma-informed care trainer. And lastly, number 10, intake assessment process consultant. So that should give you some form of structure to help you see what additional opportunities are out there for you. Now, based off the titles that I've just listed out, I am very sure that if you look at your resume and then you cross-reference that list with your resume, I am very sure that you can see how your resume provides evidence in support of you being able to have another stream of income. Of course, you have to package it. You want to include an offer. You have to find organizations or companies who are looking for assistance, or at least you can build relationships with and then highlight some gaps that you see in their system. But bottom line is, you're not starting from scratch. So with that said, what most people wanted to know was my experience in different variations of being a consultant. So I'm going to do some story time, and I'm going to walk you through various organizations. I tried to go back at least 12 to 14 years because some of these opportunities did not have to wait on me getting licensed. So if you are pre-licensed and you're a mental health provider, or you are post-grad, postdoctoral student, I'm just here to tell you some things you can actually do, but be ethical, without a license. So let's go ahead and hop into it. Okay, so the first one is called Gap Finder and Program Developer. So I went to school in the Bay Area during my doctoral program. Me and a good friend of mine, we got together one day and said, we really want to keep the kids after school. We have to be here anyway. And what we were told was that the kids didn't want to stay after school, bottom line. And so we mocked the, what was it called? Charm School show at that time with Flavor Flav on, I think, MTV. And we said, we're going to create our own little charm school at the high school. And so we watched the show, of course. We took little pieces of it, like the video recorder room, if they got some tea they want to share, of course, appropriately. And we really just wanted to get the kids in a safe space so that we can do girl time, assertiveness, how to take care of yourself, all the things. What we did not know is that when we start making announcements for it, we would have 60 to 70 girls show up throughout the whole school year. We did not know how long it was going to last. We were just pretty much experimenting, what's called beta testing. Now, a year later, maybe not even a year later, there was a director that oversaw the health center outside of the mental health providers that we were at the time. And she said, hey, I heard you have an after school program. Can I observe, etc.? So she observed, and she was brought there to write grants. And so she was, a grant was coming up for her to position the school and 3 other high schools in the area to get over $1 million. So we didn't know what was happening, but she just started interviewing us about what was happening with the girls, etc. She talked to some of the girls, and she saw that it was the opposite of what the schools were saying in terms of the kids wanting to or not wanting to stay after high school. And so she wrote up a grant. She included our data analysis of what we were doing in our program, our curriculum as we were developing it every single week. But we had a lot of practice because at the time I was already a college professor, so I knew how to develop a curriculum, and we did group therapy. And so a couple of months later, we found out that the grant was awarded, and that's actually how me and my friend ended up staying on our practicum site after we were done with our hours for that particular rotation. And we were hired on as a part-time contractor working 20 hours a week at the same school, split between 2 high schools, but we were able to get part of our position funded from this particular situation. And so why would I bring that up as what I would consider my first baby consulting gig? Well, if you look at it, I was able, me and my friend, to determine a gap. They said kids did not want to stay after school. We proved kids did want to stay after school. We had data to show that kids will stay after school, and they wanted more. And so what we actually started building was a full program development, and that was in the list that I read you earlier. Okay, the second type of consulting gig actually happened at the same school, but by now I am licensed. I moved back down to Los Angeles to do my pre-doc internship. Market had crashed. A couple of other things started happening, around this time. So I did a couple of back and forth moves. Now, this agency still had the same person over it, the person who had wrote the grants. And so we stayed in contact, and she came into some more funding. So that's the beauty part about relationship capital. And so she knew that with where I worked, I was really big on transitioning kids out of high school successfully into adulthood, because I knew that the curriculum was missing from the traditional high school, like economics, learning how to become an adult kind of thing. So I was already doing with my seniors when I was there and wherever I worked at, including the correctional facilities, I always implemented my own version of independent living skills. So she had asked, do I have any programs that high school kids will take advantage of? And my brain always goes to, what don't they have? What are they missing? And the first thing I thought about was a 8-week curriculum that I had developed over time for independent living skills. So she said, okay, you can come up here. I literally flew up there every week for 8 weeks. Yes, it was paid for and all the things. She paid me an hourly rate. We had it in the health center. It was super informal. You don't have to feel like it needs to be in no peer space or anything like that. The health center was already structured. And so we just shut off a certain part, but it was out in the open, like in a big old lobby. And we just had the workshop. The workshop varied from, let's just say maybe in the beginning, 8 kids, and then it started to increase over time. Now, by the second week, my guess is the kids started talking about the class when they went back to class the next day, because I think it was like on a Tuesday after school or something for an hour. I used the TV, so that was part of their budget. They said, what do you need? I said, well, either a projector or a TV with the ability to AirPlay or something like that from my Mac. So she got a TV installed in the wall, and it also served other purposes. So the economics teacher found out what I was up to, and he wanted to come and observe. And I know him because I used to clearly work there. So he came in and he said, hey, can I just sit in the class and observe for like 15 minutes? I don't want to ruffle the kids' feathers and not allow them to participate, because sometimes kids be acting funny when they teach you there. So he sat there for about 15 minutes, only on the part that I was speaking. Now, the week that he chose to come in was the week that I was teaching them how to fill out hiring paperwork, specifically for taxes, like, what is it, the W-2? And I remember not even being taught how to fill out that form. And that's how I claimed the wrong deductions or whatnot, for saying that I was the head of household, something crazy, like when I was 19. So I was like, don't do this. And I'm like, I'm not a tax professional. I'm not a financial fiduciary. I will just tell you what I learned. And if you don't have any kids, you're not married, you're single, 0 kids, you know what I'm saying? So after he heard that, he said, can I talk to you on the little break? So he said, is it possible if I can get a copy of the sign-in sheet? For what, because it's supposed to go to the after school program. He said, I actually want to give every single one of my students extra credit for coming after school. So not only did we build a program that the kids needed and that the school was missing, the whole school district, matter of fact, but these kids also got extra credit for doing something that they already were interested in and passionate about learning about anyway. Now, of course, that teacher then started telling other teachers. I only did one round of that, but I just wanted you to see the power of you do something you love, it'll spread like wildfire. Okay, the next one that I did, now I hope that you're going to start seeing a trend, is with the exact same agency. So let me just slip this in here. When you start building relationships with organizations, they are going to call you back. They're also going to pass your name along to their friends, their sister agencies, and anyone else that they know. So most people see my opportunities and they're like, oh my God, where did you meet all these people? And I said, it's not about meeting all these people. It's about nurturing the relationships that you have with the people that you're already in a relationship with. So same agency, but this program got bigger. Now this particular person over this after school program now has a supervisor over the program, because if you're in my programs, I talk about visionary, integrator, and then you have your line staff. So she would be considered the visionary, the person who casts the vision and wants to be able to see her vision be fulfilled in the agency, but she may not execute on all of these because she needs to spread things out so that she won't get burnt out. So she hired someone to be pretty much the supervisor or manager over a group of line staff. They all were trained, but she was trying to figure out why was there some level of toxicness within them talking to one another, and then also them talking to the manager or supervisor, and then the supervisor then being able to talk to her. So it was a chain analysis. Now, at this time, I was well versed at a lower level in industrial organizational psychology. I really fell in love with that topic. That is an area on the EPPP as becoming a clinical psychologist that we were never taught in school. But the reason why I loved those little 12 pages in my study guide, 12 whole pages, but it was a lot of information, was because it blended my interest and love for entrepreneurship with psychology, from assessments that you take when you get a job at Target or something like that. Those are all psychologists putting those tests together, which is why halfway through the test, if you're a therapist, you know what I'm talking about, it feels like a personality exam, because it's asking you the exact same questions in a different way to see if you're going to change your answer. Y'all probably know what I'm talking about. So with that said, she called me and she said, hey, I know that you do and teach conflict resolution as a college professor at different schools. I know that you also have helped our school when you were working here with conflict resolution between students, teachers, parents, and administrative staff. And so she asked me, would I be open to a short container? And this is when I realized what a container was. I'll let you know. But she said, are you open up to a container where I can fly you up here? We're going to do it for, let's just say, a 60-day time frame. That's the container. How much is your fee? So I gave her my fee. I didn't package it. I just did it per hour kind of thing, plus like my flight and like a one-night hotel stay, or sometimes I'll just stay with my best friend. And she said, I want you to get to the bottom of what's happening with the team. And then I want us to devise a plan to put together for the culture of the team. So if y'all know anything about the way that I teach right now in my coaching programs, I am very heavy on systems, culture, integrity. And it's because if I'm good at that, as you can see, I can pretty much work everywhere and anywhere, and you can as well, okay? But you got to practice it within your own business. So with that in mind, I started this opportunity and this is how it went. I initially said, I want to just have a informal meeting with everyone together. And I did not ask them to divulge issues with the team because some people may not feel comfortable. I don't know them yet. We haven't built a rapport, but I just want to get an understanding of what everybody's roles is. And I want them to walk me through a typical day in the student health center. So they did. That lasts about an hour, but I can cut that tension with a knife. And I was like, I'll be back next week. So when I came back next week, I set up an individual session with every single person so that they can give me a walkthrough of what is working and what is not working. Then I met with the visionary and we did the same thing. Then after I got a better understanding, so I developed these things as I was going because every agency is different, okay? It's like doing an intake. So after I gathered enough information, then I created my version of industrial organizational questionnaires. And I gave the questionnaires to everybody on a Likert scale, like, satisfaction 1 through 5 kind of thing. And then this is where statistics, played a role, but I did everything by hand. Now we got AI. Is that I looked at the comparison of different levels of staff, areas that are overlapping with satisfaction versus unsatisfied and all those things. And then I redacted all of their names and I presented it first to the visionary. And then we talked about it. She talked about how we wanted to improve the team culture and how she can also get better with communication and all the things, because I gave her feedback on that as well without disclosing their names. And then we met together as just a team of the employees. And then we eventually met with the employees and the visionary. And the reason why that was so imperative for me, I know what it feels like to be even in a training, let alone a meeting where we're expected to give feedback. And sometimes the person I want to get feedback on is my upper line and they're sitting right there. And I've worked in positions where sometimes people can become very, retaliatory. I don't even know if that's the word, but they retaliate. Okay. And so it worked out well. I believe I had that container for up to 6 to 8 weeks. It paid pretty decent. But again, this was the beginning phases of me learning how to be a third party, come into an organization, see a big picture, see what the problem is, devise a plan to get all the data, analyze the data, report the data back, and then make a treatment plan. From there, communication was great. I was able to come back more for like a post debrief, and I was able to observe and also check in like, hey, how is communication with you and team members, with you and supervisor, with you and visionary? And things have made a drastic shift for the good in a very short period of time. Why? Because people felt seen and they felt heard. So the next few, I'm actually going to have them overlap. And so I'm going to read my notes because I want to make sure that I get these correct because they definitely overlap in time. So one of them was, I would consider a youth program consultant. Now, this was back in 2019. This was after I attended an event. This is why events are so important. You never know who's in the room. And I was a part of an advisory board, which I work really behind the scenes to give my psychological input on speakers and all those things and topics for breakout sessions during a very large event where it was up to 500 Black mental health professionals in DC. It was powerful. And from there, my name got passed around, and then I did some phone calls with an agency on the East Coast because they heard that I had had all of this experience working not just in corrections and through a government agency. So I was a quality assurance person, but also I was really good at program development, even just with what I was able to add on for input with this particular live event. So we talked no more than like 2 to 3 times. Now, this was a little different because initially it was going to become a paid consulting opportunity, but 2020 happened. So I was able to at least get their vision, talk to them about what is possible. And it was just honestly a cool experience to talk to someone outside the state. So even though that one did not fully pan out, other opportunities followed. So one of the opportunities that followed, and I was kind of already in this mix, but I wasn't as heavy as I am now. I have been connected with the nonprofit, one of the nonprofits that I work with in Los Angeles County now. I had connected with them when I was working for the county, a government agency for the correctional facilities, back in 2011. I know I started working in 2010. And so I worked there for 4.5 years. We crossed paths at some point when I was in aftercare, which means that the kids are coming out of the juvenile correctional facility and they're expected to, reintegrate back into life. And it's a lot of people on deck to make sure that these kids stay out of jail. So I just like keeping people's phone numbers and email addresses and things like that. And I am a very big person on collaboration, clearly. So one day, I think in 2018, the supervisor, because that's not this person's role now, they reached out to me and said, hey, we have this thing called trauma-informed care. Can you come do a training? Anytime I hear psychological words, I want to make sure that there's not a certification that I don't have that exists that's attached, because if it is, then I don't want to be unethical and say, yes, I can do it. So she said, you don't need a certification. They just said it needs to be a licensed provider who is knowledgeable about trauma and who can talk to the inner city at-risk youth, transitional age youth, and those who are coming out of jail and prison about coping skills, like basic things, introduction. Well, I kind of made this part up. Introduction to wellness and mental health so that we can destigmatize mental health. That was my goal for them. And then also when they get jobs, they're able to hold down their jobs. So let's talk about trauma and how it can creep up on you. So after I read the grant debrief, I definitely knew that I can do it. So again, we weren't in a container agreement. It was just more one-offs when they called me. So my biggest opportunity came from me being prepared. As you can see now, I've had years of experience getting in front of different people and paying attention to the gap. Okay. So they said, well, no, I think I initiated going down to the office because they said, hey, we're about to get another grant and we would like you to actually be part of it. That was part of my conversation beforehand. When they would call me for these one-off trainings, I loved it, but I really loved being in the office because at that point I was working from home and I had my private practice. So I said, hey, have you ever thought about when you seek out grants, can you find some that already have a built-in mental health component, specifically around workshops, trainings for trauma-informed care? Because I can come and do what you're already having me do, but they're baked into the programming that you already have for 2 years. And then it's funding baked inside. So now we don't have to figure out what to do with these individuals if a situation arises, right? Like I can use some of those hours to then train your staff and all those things. I'll get into that pitch. So ultimately it led to me saying, I would like to have an in-person meeting. We weren't doing Zoom meetings back then. And this was before 2020. So I went down there and I came with a regular Dollar Tree blue folder. It had 2 inserts in the inside. I'm explaining this for a reason. I spent my time at home without AI. So y'all don't know how good y'all got it right now. And I typed out a proposal. I've never taken a grant class. Now what's crazy is I was teaching at University of Phoenix and I had to, we call facilitators. I actually facilitated a grant class, but it was more about websites of how to search for grants. And then I did have to read up on it. But again, I don't write grants. It was very informative where if I wanted to like make that a level of expertise, I probably can go back and take some classes and do it because I really love that class. But bottom line is I got an introduction by teaching that class to what's inside of grants and how to look for them. So I asked them to send me over the grant. They sent it over to me. I read through it thoroughly. Again, y'all have AI now. You can upload it and ask it some questions. So after I did that, I recognized that there was a gap with not just trauma-informed care, but also an opportunity to train staff on, we want to conduct better intakes for the clientele. We want to do all these things. And so one thing led to another. We're in the meeting and they said, all right, it's going to basically boil down to this T, they call me T. Like, what's the number? I'm glad you asked. I opened up the folder. I passed out both of them a folder on their own. I had my folder, so your girl brought 3 folders with the same information. And I said, if you look at, the left side of the folder, it's a itemized breakdown of all the trainings that I think will be beneficial for your clientele and for your staff. If you look on the other side and flip it over, it gives you a rough estimate of how, what the investment is for these trainings, etc. And I'll also put on the bottom, I'm more than willing to negotiate, especially if I am written into the grant in which I can come. And for every cohort of clients that you have, because they get a good amount of people each time, like every couple months, if I'm doing some of the same trainings over and over again, I will give you pretty much a slight discount because I'm tweaking the content for that particular clientele for that cohort, but not everything is from scratch, right? They were like, wow. So, because at first they were going to be like, email it to me. No, you have it right here. Do you have any questions? And they looked, they were like, this is actually doable. Music to my ears. They said, now we got to talk to the accounting team. We need to have a management meeting. We need to make sure the numbers all make sense. But from what I'm seeing, we can definitely do this. And that's how I got started. So up until present day, I still work with that agency. Right now, it is slowing down because of all the government changes with grants, funding, and also just people's lifestyle is changing with what people are interested in terms of participating in programs. Enrollment may be slower in certain programs and things like that. And also when I first came on, like the construction downtown LA was ridiculously like high in terms of the trains, the high rises. And now that a lot of those projects are done, things are still there, but they don't need as many people to like build the railroad kind of thing, the metro. And so with that in mind, I've been part of, at any given time from that particular agency, 5 to 6 grants. My title is a consultant. I'm still a psychologist because I come and do the trainings and the workshops. But I also still always pay attention to what are the clients saying? What are the staff saying? And if there is wiggle room to even change the title of a training that I have coming up to be appropriate for that cohort or for the staff to be able to perform their job better and provide quality service, then that's what I'm going to voice my opinion on. So I would highly encourage you, take everything I said in today and don't be afraid to tell someone what is the missing gap. The worst thing that they can say is, we don't have an opportunity right now, but we might have one later. Because all of these relationships that I've built, even if some things did not continue, I still have working relationships with these people to this day, 10 years later, and I'm still being called and passed along to sister agencies, other agencies. I didn't even get into churches, okay? So with that said, if you are interested in expanding your clinical private practice, okay, I really want you to check out the show notes in the description box because we do have a private practice boot camp coming up. It is our big finale for the end of this year, 2025 at the time of this recording. And we have some awesome things to offer, to share, but it is for you if you are a mental health provider and you are looking to either open up a profitable private practice going into next year, and or you have one, but you want to eventually scale. You want to add consulting, but let's be real. A lot of us do not have those systems and that organization in place beyond the typical progress note, treatment plan, and intake. Meaning, ask yourself, can you step away from your private practice and it not fall down? Can you reduce some of the time that you give to your private practice and go to this other stream of income and not feel like you're at capacity and burning yourself out? The reason why I ask those is that there should be a level of automation, templates, and systems, things that are in place that will position you to hire somebody in your business or get a VA or get some systems up and running so that you can have the room to step away from your business so that you can actually design a life first business and curate the schedule that you want. So if you're interested in coming to that boot camp, then definitely check out the description box. Now, if you're also interested in just like other streams of income, what is possible, because I just answered the question on consultation. If you're interested to know like what are other streams of income, or you may have run across me on social media and I'm talking about 80 plus streams of income. I break down in a good amount of categories with giving you some examples, some scripts, and some bonuses like a launch execution guide that's going to take you step by step so that you can see what does it actually take to launch another stream of income. I want you to check out in the show notes, the description box, my profitable streams of income guide. Okay. Now, if you are already in business, this is a game changer because sometimes we only think outside of therapy, and group practice. I can only do a digital product like an ebook. There are so many more things that you can actually do as a mental health provider while protecting your license. So go and check out the boot camp. Go and check out the profitable streams of income. I hope to see you in the boot camp. I really hope to see you back. So subscribe to the channel, like this video, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.